This is Comic Picks by the Glick.
Hey, I'm your host, Jason Glick.
Jason Glick, what's going on? What do you have from tap for us today?
Well, today is like the first of like what I hope is a long line of creator-owned comics from a creator who I really like, and that is writer Al Ewing. Ewing is someone who came up in the ranks of 2000 AD, writing Judge Dredd. It's like another like science fiction comics before being scouted by Marvel to write a lot of their titles. Now, for a long while, he wrote a lot of titles that were critically appreciated, legitimately good comics that did not set the sales charts on fire at all. I'm talking about like titles like his like the second volume of New like was it the third no it's the third volume of New Avengers. It's like and another title that it's like Ultimates on Reversal, and another title I've talked about previously on this podcast, Loki, Agent of Asgard. But then something funny happened. Like he got a shot at one of Marvel's A-list characters, like the Hulk, and gave us a title that was not just critically acclaimed, but also a sales juggernaut for most of its run as well. I'm talking about the Immortal Hulk, and this basically put like Al Ewing into like the A-list for Marvel. Now, on one hand, it didn't like automatically guarantee that everything he did was going to be like golden sales wise, but like I'm talking about his Guardians of the Galaxy run, which was tragically cut short after like 18 issues and one mini event. But it did give him like the name recognition that he could finally branch out into creator owned work, basically stuff like that you could just say, hey, here's this new concept from the creator, the guy who gave you the Incredible Hulk, the Immortal Hulk. You like the Immortal Hulk, right? So you'll like this one too. And this title being We Only Find Them When They're Dead, with artist Simone Di Meo. This is a series that lasted for 3 volumes, and on one hand, like that's like a fairly respectable time for like for creator owned work. It's like, but at the same time, it's definitely not in the same level as other Boom Studios titles, such as say like Something Is Killing the Children, which also had a 15 issue opening arc, and but consistently set sales records as it was being published. We Only Find Them When They're Dead did not do that. I mean, it sold. We were told it sold really well, for its initial arc, but given that it only that eventually called it quits after three volumes, like implies that it didn't quite live up to sales expectations after that. I say this because this is a fascinating series that I wish had gone on longer, so we could learn more about its world of dead space gods. Because when I say that, when the title says we only find them when they're dead, the there, it's like in this title, is referring to these dead space gods, and the world of this series is basically as we're introduced in the first volume, is basically founded upon like harvesting these gods and their resources. It's like as they appear like on a semi-regular basis in our universe, and it's like and we're introduced to this process of harvesting space gods, courtesy of the crew of the Vihan 2. It's like led by Captain Georges Malik. It's like his quartermaster Alice, coroner, she operates the knife, Ella, and his engineer and current boyfriend, Jason Hauer. So, basically, the first volume does a great job of establishing this world, where it's where these gods appear, and then people just show up and just to harvest parts of the corpse in order to in order to make a living, and further the technological advancement of the universe at large. Because it's not just the meat they're after. There's also the parts of the weapon, parts of their body, which and their armor, which they appear with, that also like power, it's like power, uh, it's like power of the universe, or power of the universal weapons, and also the God Heart, which is basically like described as a crystal lattice of infinite data storage capacity, which is later revealed to be the source of AI. It's computing, like producing believable, conceivable AI, like in this universe. We'll come back to that in a bit, but the it's like, but as we're introduced to the crew of the Vihan 2, it's like Captain Malik is like first among equals here. It's like, and he's and the first one is mostly centered around his perspective, as he's asking this question of like why are the gods always dead when we when we see them? Was it like for them to be? Why are they not alive? Like when they enter a universe, do they have to lose some sort of special essence before they do this? And this is something that's haunted him like all his life. And the first volume, initially sets us up as him trying to find this answer, but it's also tangled up in like messy business of family history, because he and his crew are hounded by this enforcer, Paula Richter, who was engaged to Malik's older brother, but then he died. Like, in fact, like a good portion of Malik's family died, like as a result of some very, very murky circumstances, that it was implied that George's had some hand in. But the main thrust of the story is basically George's convincing his crew that hey, it's time to make a run and find out just what where did the gods come from, and it's like and what do they and what are they like when they're alive? Thing is, though, it's that when he finally decides to make his run, Paula is there too, watching them, and she's on board to try and track him and his crew down when they when they run. The first volume, subtitled "The Seeker," is a good introduction to this world, and it's the fundamental questions of who are the gods, and why are they always dead when they show up. But at the same time, its biggest problem is that it kind of feels like a volume zero, in the sense that it's like it's like establishing a lot of stuff, and that it's more concerned with the with the feud between George's and Paula. It's over the course of the volume. It's handled pretty well with Ewing dealing out the revelations, in a suitably expedient fashion. And it's enough to keep you invested as things go on. And also, artist Simone Di Meo is really good with just drawing all this fantastic stuff. Just not just the not only does he convey the immensity of these space gods when they appear dead, but also when they appear live, or live for a certain portion in in later parts of the volume. But also the business of just what happens when you've got a business of lots of autopsy ships carving up gods as part of a universe wide business. The main issue I have with Di Meo's art, and this is something that persists throughout the 3 volumes, is that the coloring is generally way too dark. It's mentioned that he's the main artist, not just penciler, not just inker, but also colorist. And because the subsequent volumes indicate there are coloring assists here. But it just feels like kind of way too dark, and I kind of wish that we had more definition here, or that just didn't feel so murky to look at this future world. But even then, it's something I'm willing to put up with, because Di Meo does do a good job of conveying the scale of the world. And also just the action as well. It's good art. I just kind of wish it was easier to see throughout these 3 volumes. But the first volume does wrap up pretty solidly, concluding for now, wink wink, George's feud with Paula, and then also like like intimating a like an interesting like setup for future volumes because, well, unlike anyone else who was like gone before him, George's manages to come back like as a god, not a live god, mind you, a dead god. But the fact that people are able to recognize him as like, hey, wait a second, isn't that the guy who like made a run to escape our universe and become a god? Oh wow, this opens up so many theological like quandaries here to the point where yes, there is a like on volume 2 subtitled The Stealer, basically like tries to address like both the like the issues of like what happens when someone actually manages to come back as a god, as a dead god, because remember we only find them when they're dead, but also what happens when the people trying to like maintain this like divine like aura of the god of the gods like have to like defend themselves and defend their own like their own beliefs as well, because there's a interesting distinction here in the second volume that's established. I mean, it's not just like because there are some people like who believe that the gods that they find dead in space were divine, but there's also like now a subsequent offshoot of believers who believe that Georges Malik himself was divine because he came back as a god himself, and that's something that the regular like believers of gods have like are basically just kind of like no, it's like all gods are divine. Like this Malikism you talk about is just heresy, and that's where we find ourselves in this like at the start of this first volume, at the start of the second volume, where it's like you've got like this colony like built around like like veneration of Georges Malik's dead body. It's like, and they're being visited by someone from the inner reaches of the it's like of this universe, because like there's basically like the borderlands, which is where like basically like it's space Wild West, and then there's like the inner colonies, which is basically just kind of like the bureaucracy, the people who like run like play politics and just try to like make everything as safe and structured as possible for like for everyone who for the regular people live. And it's like in the second volume basically like introduces us to it's like a it's like an operative who by the name of Marilyn Chen, who is basically like charged by the inner colonies to find a way to bring Georges Malik's body, um, dead god body, back to the it's like to the inner colonies so they can like do some experiments, because on one hand like Malik is basically like the last god to not have been harvested as it's like as they used to do for all the gods, and like they figure that that he's special, basically that like in addition to like the meat, like the parts of the armor, it's like and the god crystal of his heart, that's all like good stuff, but the leader of the colonies, guy named Ryan Aguirre, basically figures something else, that the crystal within the god crystal within Malik's body like would also may also harvest his may also hold his memories. So basically, they may be able to figure out how people become gods themselves. So that's a thing, and that's basically what Agent Chen is in charge of figuring out. And while she's got her like her crew, like her like people who are like section of like operatives who are like there to help her out, and like some deep cover operatives within Malik's flight, the place where George's body is being held by the like by the people who worship the space gods. Well, it's like she's going to try and figure out how to get him out, and in order to do that, she had to convince like the one person it's like who can maybe like who has enough knowledge about this in order to make it work. And that is Jason Hauer, George's former boyfriend, who has been, like who was initially held by the inner colonies as they were trying to figure out just what exactly did Georges do. It's like in order to to escape like the it's like in order to like escape our watch and leave this place. It's like, and also just how do you become a god in the first place? But then he was kidnapped by the by the god worshippers, and then basically presented as like Alex chosen, like someone who could espouse the beliefs of of the god to their specifications. Volume 2 is basically all about like the lies people tell each other in order to survive. Basically, like the lies the faithless tell the faithful in order to get what they want. The lies the faithful tell the faithless in order to like screw them over. And what happens when people like Jason, it's like try to lie to themselves in order to like believe that this is what I want. I wish I want to live a complacent, peaceful life. It's like, and like I've mentioned, convinced myself, but like reality keeps intruding, and that doesn't work. The Stealer is definitely a much better. Well, okay, not much better. It was better in the first volume, in the sense that like it's basically kind of a heist story. Like only like the thing being stolen here is like a space god, the dead space god's body, and there's a lot of like clever twists here, and that also like further like flesh out the world building of this. It's like of this universe. It's like I wanted to know more about the political like business between the inner colonies and the borderlands. It's like, and there are also more interesting characters like introduced here, like Undine, the deep cover operative sent in by the it's like by the inner colonies to infiltrate like the people of Malik's Reach, and like her like and how she was able like to conceal her real beliefs from them, and also characters like Honor and Bristow, who shows up again in the finale in Volume 3, someone who like is was recruited as part of the security team like for the religious of Malik's Reach, but honestly doesn't believe anything, but can talk the talk and walk the walk more convincingly than a lot of like real believers do. So Volume 2 like does like sets up like sets up a a good solid story. It's like, and like interested in a lot of interesting characters, while also like adding like more interesting twists to like established ones. It's kind of like second volume that you kind of want to you hope for a lot of new series. The one that basically like establishes like hey, not only can we like tell like maintain the quality of the previous volume, we can do it better, and we can do it more expansively as well. Like it's a kind of like step where you look and go, hey, you know what? This second volume of We Only Find Them When They're Dead is great. I look forward to a long, like long, interesting run for the series, for however how long that its creator decides to go. And if you've been listening to me talk for any length of time here, it's like that's not the case. Like in fact, once Volume 2 came out, it's like I was already aware that Volume 3 would be the finale for this series. And it's like to Ewing's credit, he at least he set this up pretty well. He seemed to realize this when creating Volume 3, because like it's like it does feel like like we got to wrap this up now, like for like a good portion of its run. It's like it does actually like wrap things up like fairly satisfyingly, because it picks up from the end of Volume 2, which basically introduces us to Theory 9, an artificial intelligence put into a humanoid body. This AI being based upon the God crystal memories of Georges Malik. And like in this third volume, subtitled "The Soul," it's all about it's basically mainly focused on Theory's experiences, because on one hand, like he is George's Malik because he's got all of Malik's memories. But the thing is, like, he's also his own person because even though he's got Malik's memories, he's still learning and experiencing things, from, it's like in real time, like going forward from here. Oh, and just look at the persistent visions of like of George's the close friend Alice and nemesis Patricia. Or so so there so there you go. You've got so you've got, but then and the idea for volume 3, is that like they're like the people who made theory 9 are going to like have him reenact like George's initial like flight outside the universe in the hope that he'll eventually realize like what's going, like how Malik became a god and how everyone else can follow in his footsteps. What follows is it's like and I'm wrong. It's like it's not Patricia, it's Paula. It's like my bad. So the it's like so while like this final volume is basically like all about like theories experiences. It's like you've also got like a lot of follow up from previous volumes. Like I mentioned like Paula and Alice like appearing like as ghosts. It's like, and also the like like on like Honorim gets his like follow up here. It's like he shows up years later, still still talking the same talk, walking the same walk, all in the service of his daughter, which he believes that I'm doing this all for you, but it's a case of like, hey, I'm doing this all for you, but I wasn't actually like doing it for you. I wasn't there for you. I couldn't believe that like you would have any vision of your life apart from mine. Like, so there you go. But at the same time, it's like even as we're introduced to like his daughter as her own character, she's kind of like written off like fairly quickly in order like as the main plot demands. And we also like do get answers as to where the gods come from and like how they wind up in our universe. It's an interesting answer in that regard, in the sense that it's kind of like a macro, like human size scale of what happens when our bodies die. How do the it's like what do the what do the decaying results of our bodies look like to the parasites and the bacteria and the viruses that like that degrade them. It's like in to the end. It's like from their perspective, like, are we just like some big unknowable source of data and protein? And I will say that like Ewing does come up with some interesting responses to that. In terms of like what the what the like like what the result of like these gods' bodies like are meant to like represent for our universe. And I don't want to say this exactly what it is because I'd be spoilers, and I do think this series is worth reading. But I was like, I still kind of feel like I would have loved if this series gone on longer and just explored it in more detail, because with all the answers we get as to what is alive and what is dead are satisfying. I really wanted to know like more about what this about what happens when when a god returns to the universe alive means. It's like on one hand, like I guess that's means the series is a success in the sense that it ended with me wanting to know more, even as it basically said this is the end. Like this is like these 3 volumes are all you're getting. And that's a little bit disappointing because I much rather would have like seen this series continue on indefinitely and become a massive, huge sales success compared to say something as Killing the Children. But I've explained my bias towards that series as well, because it's like that series seems to have like struck a chord with like with like horror, like with horror readers. It's like, and people are just looking at its protagonist, and it's kind of going, hey, this is like really cool and new. It's like, and me and my old man goes like, no, I've seen this before. This is like Buffy but more violent. It's like, and more, it's like our parent is more isolated and all. It's like, this is usual. While like we only find them when they're dead. It's like, is trying to do something more challenging and interesting. But I I'm starting to sound like an bitter old man here, but I will say that like, go and read these three volumes of this series. I don't know if there are plans to collect it all in one volume. My gut feeling would be that yes, there's probably like some one volume edition of the series like in the offing. But even if you don't want to wait, like you know, for this, like for the series to be collected in one volume, it's like I'd say go ahead and do it. Um, the work that Al Ewing and Simone Di Meo do here is really interesting and satisfying, and it's also enough to make me want to see what Ewing does next with his next creator owned series. Because even though I haven't heard about what he's planning next, I mean, he's still hip deep in the X-Men universe right now with X-Men Red, and I hope that series is like going to get like more than 3 volumes. Even though I get the feeling that you know like his tenure is probably going to be wrapping up with the imminent fall of X, status quo. We only find them in the dead shows that he can do like quality work when not attached to a major superhero universe. I really enjoyed this, and like I said, I was left wanting more, but oh well, that's how things go.
Well, maybe they will have a full collected volume in the future.
Yeah, it's like my money's on that. I mean, I haven't checked Amazon lately. There could be one right now, but I just haven't checked. So I guess that's my bad. That's my lack of responsibility prior to going in here.
You know what you're going to be talking about next time.
Next time, probably not going to be a Buried Treasures of Manga edition because hey, it's like it'll be Funime next time, but it's probably going to be a manga. It's something I've been writing out for a while. That's Dead Demons Destruction. So we'll talk to you next time about that. Hopefully.
All right. Talk to you next time on Comic Picks by the Glick.
Laters, everyone.